Alright, I collected the initial flags for the turn, but then realized, wow, I forgot when I got that home front to move the Russians to the political status. They intended to go there because they've got some issues. Issues that make Germany feel a little safer, honestly, and them moving to political makes Germany feel a little safer. However, we'll see. Anyway, it was my intention to move them there. It came late in the turn. I don't remember exactly when. It may have actually been post. Because I don't see a Cuban propaganda and they didn't get to roll it. But they don't have a flag there, so I don't know. They just got their one flag for the turn. And now we collect our production. And it may be time to start cashing some things in, like the Ruhr here and Spain, in order to get enough production to start the war. It's appealing to wait until you're getting 3 builds per, but 2 builds per is pretty decent. I don't like calling on temporary resources before that, but I think at this point we're good enough to do so. It has to consider long and hard what their plans are at this point too. I kind of know what's going on over in Europe now, more or less, at least with the Germans and the Italians, what they want to do. They're going to try to take out France. But what about Japan? Does Japan want to take a shot at things down here, and to what extent? A move against Britain alone is appealing. It really is. Trying to move against the U.S. seems difficult, but the U.S. can beat Japan on its own. There's no problem with that. And that's one of the difficulties here, is that Japan, if you build a big area that the U.S. has to fight over, you can delay them, perhaps. I'm not sure how well that'll work. Certainly if you don't defend this area, it just all collapses at once. It's fairly easy for Japan to grab all that territory. The question is, the U.S. is pretty far out of things still. They're still in civilian government or mobilization. They're not really ready for this. Is this the time to hit them? Well, that will probably make it very easy for them to upgrade. In fact, once you are belligerent, let me see if I can find it. If the power is belligerent, they can automatically increase effectiveness by just playing flags. So you really kind of want to knock something like the U.S. out before it can grow, and that's kind of impossible. But knocking out the Brits or knocking out the French, those are possibilities. And if we get both of them, the game's over. Are we in a position to? That's the question. We can probably grab Java at this point. From there, we're in a better position. I don't think we want to count on a full attack happening yet. But do we need additional forces? Well, our builds that we produce are only 2. That can get us some of our upgrade capability, and that's pretty much all that we can do. All this other stuff we probably want when we go to total war, because since we haven't voided the naval treaty, we're nowhere near we're nowhere near what we want to be at. So I guess we'll still kind of take things easy here. And again, I think I may be trying for things like Java, India, Australia. See what I can do there, get my production up. Not that the production's more important early in the game in a lot of ways, so I don't know. In the beginning of the turn, reserves get kicked in. We had Japan and Russia both increase their stability successfully, actually. At this point, Il Duce is going to be activated. It's important to do the Il Duce marker because otherwise Italy only gets one for its flag, and Germany and Italy are going to try to make an alliance. And we get 2 dice for this because of that marker. At +2, it succeeds. So there is now an alliance. This goes away. Get rid of these cubes. And that's going to provoke, obviously, France, who doesn't have any chits left, and Britain, who's not going to be able to reserve theirs. But that's cool. It may have provoked Italy as well, or Russia as well. Let me make sure. I think it does, but let me make sure about it. And that means that the Russians get to do another stability check, which they fail at. At this point, though, the fact that I did the alliance, if I hadn't done the alliance and just invaded France with the Germans, I might not have had to face that fortress, but I couldn't. The only way I could do that is if I put an offensive in there instead of trying to create the alliance, and then Italy could have tried to mobilize. Italy can't go to war right now. So actually France could break the Italian alliance by attacking first. Kind of World War I-ish sound there, but not quite. But yeah, essentially Italy's not ready for the war, not willing to accept it. They can't. It won't break the alliance because Italy can join the war without being mobilized as a defensive alliance. On an offensive alliance, they can't join them, and that's kind of what goes weird here. So Germany could break the alliance if they so desired. I've kept the Ruhr in Spanish productions because once I go to war, I can get all kinds of offensives, and I think that's possibly more useful. Because otherwise, I'm not going to get all that many belligerent offensives. We'll see. What else do we have? We have... So, yeah, the French are going to trigger their effect, which is the fortification, and I'm going to put that in Paris. Luckily, I have room for it there. If I had built too many units, it would be tough. It's possible France could fall, though, without Paris going down. So that's one aspect to deal with. And we're at cup time now. All the provocations and all their effects are taken into account, and we open up the Russian home front. Which they succeed in. I found stopping didn't really help except when I need to. The U.S. gets a flag. All right, the U.S.'s goal is to increase commitment. I've got to use it because I've got my resource there. I don't know if I can use that resource for anything other than next turn. I only get 2 dice here, but I'm at +2 on increasing commitment, which works well. That's going to be a provocation for Japan. Take a flag there so that they can do some political action. And then I got to do some figuring for what the U.S. wants to do as it moves up to just rearmament here. But we get a whole bunch of extra units that we'll be able to build next year. And the Japanese played their flag trying to increase their stability in that time. But for the U.S., this is what they built. A bunch of carrier increases. We're bound by the naval treaty. Japan has a huge jump on us. And we also grabbed an armor increase and some extra forces because we're afraid the European war is going to actually start. It looks like it's going to start. Which may mean that we need time, or we'll have time to build up for the Japanese war. We'll see. Things might turn very ugly there very quickly. And Britain is still not going to pull their chit. So we have our first crisis for the year. Or 2 years. It's still peace, but it's looking less like it. Nazi infighting. Reduce Germany's effectiveness by 1 until end of turn. Well, this is not a good turn to go to war then. Uh-oh. Phew. Get a French flag. The French want to ally with the British. It's not actually in a reserve. They just drew it, put it there because the French only get 1 die though. We need help. We don't get help. Over to the alliance check. That doesn't provoke anyone. They're just talking. Brits get another army. Put it in London because it looks to me like we may have to try to save France. Russian army. Haha. Well, Russians feel pretty good over here. I've got Trans-Siberia, so I can throw stuff against Japan if and when I need to. More stuff into Poland. U.S. offensive. All right, a U.S. offensive can actually do something now, perhaps. I don't know, maybe not. Maybe that's a little extreme. I don't think I can trace a line of communication anyway. Yeah, there's no civil wars anyway. I can't trace one into China. At least I can get a build off of this, which is about the best I think I can do. I've got a ton of these in my pool. I'm not mobilized, so I can't go attacking. Well, I can't attack without a declaration of war anyway. So we'll build some air power. We don't have enough of that, and we're not going to put that in, even if we wanted to. Oh, actually, yeah, it's just 1-to-1. Second crisis. I hate when the crises all happen early. Because they're kind of the exciting thing. Political crisis, isolationism, reduce the U.S.'s effectiveness by 1. Well, that's a bummer. Right then. Speaking of which, British are up to a 3. When they mobilized, theirs went up to a 3, which I didn't take into effect. It's one of the things with the game. There's so many little things. Even when you're playing just 1 power, quite often you're like, oh shit, I forgot about this. Now, I'm sure if you get really, really focused on it, but usually there's like in a game of Whiff, there's like 1 per country, maybe really special thing you got to pay attention to. With this, there's a handful of them, and there isn't that much. For whether it's good or bad, there isn't that much other detail going on. So it's like, but you're doing all these fast movements. You're not like sitting there with long amounts of downtime to plan. Somebody's doing something and then boom, right away your chit gets pulled. So it's very, very conducive to failure to do things correctly. We get another U.S. chit. I think the only thing we can do with this is to build. Again, it's a 1-to-1 building, so I can't build those advances. So we'll start throwing some troops in. I got to be careful. I may not be able to get everything. I may have to execute some folks. More Ruskies. Well, it would suck if Leningrad got taken. Another U.S. offensive, another U.S. infantry. And that's the end of those. By having so many in there, though, I get to cycle my troops a little faster. That looks like a German plane. Jeez, I'm not happy about this. While we're not at war, let's slip it into Spain. That's going to be the harder place to get things. And the French home front. The French are at the big -1, but they live. Oh, I probably want to reposition my French. We'll hold off on the Italian home front, but I can't reposition this. I mean, I can throw it in the cup and see if it gets rebuilt, but that doesn't seem wise. Otherwise, I think we're okay. We may want to get our Navy up in the Paris area instead, just because, I'm a lot more worried about the Italian Navy. We'll keep the Navy here where we can actually use it. All right, so now there's an Italian home front marker. Italy only gets 1 die as well. They are not so lucky. And drop down to unstable and are beginning to look like maybe they don't want to do the war. Let's make sure the Strezzi didn't. Okay. Didn't do anything exciting. This looks like some German infantry. Well, we want to put some protections against possible Russian problems. Russian tanks. And rearming like extra units and everything doesn't do you anything. All right, I got a German flag. Now I could use a German flag to declare war, but that seems like a bad idea to me. So I'll put it there. Other uses would be if, I'm gonna do some political with it instead. Actually, I'm gonna do a political action. I don't really need it for anything else. That doesn't succeed. Propaganda. Okay. And British home front. Oh, the Italians did not want to shift. The British home front, they're at 3 dice now, but at -1. It's very likely to fail these. Lucky thing, they didn't drop 2 spaces. And reorg. I'm going to shift this back to South Africa. I'm more worried about Germany than Italy. And I think the tank is okay where it is in Egypt. And the air power's fine. A German offensive. Okay, this is how it would happen, right? Except Italy is not mobilized. So I'd be abandoning Italy as an ally. I don't want to do that. So instead what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the German offensive to do something other than go to war with the Allies. I get 2 operations off of it. Now, with 2 operations, I could upgrade my planes. I could build myself a couple submarines. But again, this becomes a very clear problem under those circumstances. I could throw more troops in the Chit Cup. I could launch an attack on something like Denmark. Not unuseful because it protects Sweden. So why don't we do something? Well, because this is going to provoke the hell out of people like Britain and Russia. And both of them have chips. I am going to build an infantry and an air unit because I get 2 builds at this commitment level. If my armor advance was out, I would reproduce that. I get some additional infantry. Where do I want those infantry? Again, it's possibly hard to get into Spain, but this is my more important place. East Prussia, it's going to suck, but it's kind of out there and it's kind of asking to be lost. I got nothing in Bavaria. Is that wise? I mean, if I start the war and go into Lorraine, I don't need Bavaria. I'm going to ship more forces into Spain. German home front. Our effectiveness is only 2 now. We have a -1 to the die roll. And we go down. One of the things in this game is that your stability, it's really important to keep it up. But once you start going into a wartime footing, your stability starts tanking. And you're going to need flags to get it back in place. And it's not trivial. There's a lot of management in this game that's just painful. Let's get some Air Force over in the west, because again, it's looking... Oh, German home front. Did they want to reposition when they got that? I'm kind of deployed how I want to be. French Air Force. Japanese carrier production. I'm only allowed 1 boat in there because it's got an R. Not supposed to stay. Russian offensive. Oh, geez. So I get 2 actions off this. The way things are set up might be the time. Can't roll into Yugoslavia with any value, but might be the time to roll into Czechoslovakia. Let's do it. We're going to bonus our unit. We're going to push. We don't have to bring 2 air in. It doesn't do us any good. We're augmenting the attack. Oh, we're not military. Shit. Maybe we don't do that. Maybe we don't want to do that. The bad terrain with unaugmented military. The unaugmented military, I believe, means another -1 to military actions. Yeah, -1 to score in all combats. Oh, what other military operations are available to us? We're going to put the tank increase chit in there because we get 2 builds off of one of those. And that's it. Did we get the Russian home front? Shit. We got it a long time ago. I would have definitely moved this over at that point, but I did not. And I'm not going to back that one up. That's too far back and has had some impacts, I think. French get a tank increase. We're worried about the battle there. Oh, there's the Russian. Yeah, the possibility of screwing up, it's really high. And I mean, it's not just in solo play. It's in any play. It's really hard to pay attention and keep track of everything you're trying to think of and do. We get a U.S. home front marker. And then you've got special rules like this that, you know, you got to worry about. The U.S. only gets 1 die. And they actually do have to roll now. They live. And now they can redeploy. Now, their redeployment is interesting. They probably actually want to. Just send a ground unit. A little worried about the Navy. So So we're going to send a ground unit and both navies here. And we can organize this properly and get the submarine fleet over there. That works. And we draw the German tanks. The giant Spanish army. German infantry. We don't really need to cover Bavaria. We may need 2 units to go into the Lorraine. Let's put another unit in there. French flag. We need to stock this so that when a British flag comes up, we can call on an ally there. U.S. offensive. Good God, I don't know. Well, we can't really do much with it except build units. It's only worth 1, and these are all worth 2. It's gone. I mean, we could redeploy again, but French get some more air power. Put some in Provence. Japanese home front. Okay. They get 2 dice at -1. They live. Redeployment. I'm sure I want to redeploy, so hold on. Okay. That redeployment has taken place. We've shifted a lot more power down in the Hong Kong region. We may actually just declare Mart and seize Hong Kong and just start the war that way, because it's very hard mechanically to get a war going. I don't want to use up a surprise attack against Britain, who has no problem. Or at least not there. Now, if the French, if the Germans attack the French with a surprise attack, then the Japanese surprise attack becomes okay, because it's just seizing an area. Get British aeroplane. Get more into London, I guess. You know what? We'll deploy this down to Spain. Gibraltar can hold an airplane. Ah, third crisis. Still no war. Right, 4 Chinese resistance. Powers with a Cuban and ungarrisoned Chinese country with no Chinese armies must perform an effectiveness check for each. If the check fails, they leave. So the Russians lose a victory point. And the Japanese have one over here, and I'm glad I shifted my forces. I might be losing this otherwise. They lose Chahar and a victory point. Just drops the fascists down to 9. Assuming I have my points right, and I think I do. I don't think anything exciting's happened since then. Well, we got 4 Russians, yeah, and 4 Japanese. Sounds about right. Yeah. You'd think by this time the people in the park would fucking not be parked right there anymore. We got 2 armies. These are not in Canada. It's an invasion. We got to throw this one over on the west coast then. Italian air power. Well, with all those French planes, the Italians need more planes. U.S. offensive. Useless. How did they get so many? They got them because they couldn't build anymore. Japanese offensive. Okay. This would be the surprise attack if we did it. and we don't want to waste a surprise attack on this. I could just go take this base, except the Washington Naval Treaty is in place. The only way for me to defeat that is to bring Britain into the war. Or the US, but... so, what am I doing with this offensive? I could throw an upgrade counter in, or build something and launch an attack. I could try to retake Chahar, which doesn't sound terrible. We're going to march in from Manchuria, attack Chahar. We're not going to improve our chances here. We're in supply because Manchuria was in supply. So we get 2 dice plus 1 for the air support. The Chinese will use red for them. Get only 1 die because they don't have an army there. There's no modification for terrain. This is not good. That's a 2-to-1. We were beat at 2-to-1, which means we have to lose 2 units. We only have 1 unit. This was a disaster. We still have an operation left. Japan just suffered a catastrophe, and they have to make a stability check because of it, which they succeed in. But that was not good. My second operation, I'm going to rebuild this military unit and throw it back in Manchuria. Not a horrible effect, no worse than the US throwing their counters away, but it could have been worse, you know. Oh, we're in sudden death. Another thing that's hard to remember. US, more infantry has to go on the west coast. I'm not allowed to put it in the Philippines because of the naval treaty. 4th crisis. What do we got? Well, the US has 2 or more counters, so the turn continues. And now things are getting scary, you know. Things aren't happening as much as you'd expect. The US gets shit. What is the US planning on doing? They have to do something. We could ally with France. But we're not at mobilization, but we could help France a great deal if we succeeded. Now, our chances are very, very low. What the fuck? Oh, France and Britain have a potential alliance, which means there's no plus yet. France would get an extra cube, but that doesn't really help. We just got up to rearmament this turn. We could go to Lend-Lease. It doesn't help us much. We can't form or join an alliance until Lend-Lease is in play. Well, that's what we're doing. We're going to try to create Lend-Lease. It doesn't help much because of belligerency. You've got to be belligerent in order to send goods. But the United States can produce resources to belligerent powers, and that's about it. But it does allow the alliances, so there's a reason to try. Yeah, we don't succeed, but we start collecting up cubes on it. I hope we haven't been falling. Yeah, not too badly. Russian tanks. Tanks a lot. British air upgrade. Ooh. Where do we want a strategic air force? This strikes me, it's most useful here, to tell you the truth, because I can then push it out further and actually patrol sea areas. So I think. A British plane. Throw another one in. U.S. offensive. No use. Civil War resolution. All right. We have no civil wars going on over here. So all we have is this civil war. The GMD has nowhere it can expand to, but the communists do. They get 2 dice for being the largest. They're going to try to slip into Chahar and make life a little uglier on the Japanese. They do not succeed, but that's okay. And we'll put that over here. U.S. time waster. The French are worried that if they don't use their chit soon, nothing's going to happen. I don't think I saw a British flag in the game. Of course, on the other hand, I don't know that I saw a German flag either. All the German flags are here. The Brits actually have an additional flag in there. Okay, we'll keep waiting. Unless something terrible is wrong. This is the 4th crisis. It's probably over. Yep, it is. So German plane, a British flag. All the counters were resolved. So these go over with them. This is pushing forward. The U.S. gets the resource that they stored. The French get the flag that they wish they had played. But if they had, they would be blowing their alliance. There was a British flag in there, so there could have been an alliance there. And it is the end of 40 there. I don't know that this one's going to... I'm cutting this one here, but I'm not going to load it up. I'm going to keep playing the next turn. But the next turn looks to be the beginning of the war, so that's going to probably be really huge. So I don't know. Maybe I should... We'll cut this here. Let's load it up. All right. Because I'm pretty sure the next turn is going to be a huge turn. So our situation, not much changed. A lot of saber rattling, a lot of preparation for the war. It just didn't happen. Some of that is a problem of me not being able to plan properly. The Germans, nobody gave them an additional flag so that they could try. Well, the biggie is the Italians never got an additional flag. And that there's no reason anybody was going to give them one. So I didn't really think through what was going to happen in terms of who was going to end up where and whether or not the game was likely to proceed from here if I didn't just go in. So instead what we've got is a fortified France here with the armor. It looks pretty tough. We've got a scary Russia on our border where maybe we don't want to start a war. But like I said, if we don't start a war with the Allies, they will probably start one with us when we're on the ropes with Russia. Or even if we're like winning against Russia, they'll throw in against us because this is the only place where France's army can do any good at all. So the destruction of France is sort of necessary for any kind of overture of peace, for whatever it's worth, between the Axis and the Allies. Japan failed also to plot their things out properly. They were counting on Germany starting the war. That's the problem. Germany assured them, yeah, I'm going to start the war this turn. Japan didn't get to do anything because of that. So everything's frozen. Is that terrible for the Axis? Not necessarily. They're still winning the game. If it gets... I don't know what happens if we get to this turn and finish that turn without a war starting. Because the end game conditions, or without global war coming about, the end game conditions are the higher of this or the marker that's 2 turns out from global war. I am almost tempted to say if that marker's not out there, ending this turn without a war starting, you just failed to manage World War II. It just didn't happen. And, you know, it could certainly occur. That would work well for the Axis at this point. They've been able to grow a great deal comparatively, and France has lost a lot of its power here, as they would, and the Soviets simply haven't been able to gain as much as, you know, in order to catch up. They kind of need to hit they kind of need to hit someone to get victory points. They got to get more cubes on the board. Of course, there's a lot of neutral stuff. They could go collecting those up and make themselves a rich source of victory points that maybe becomes a target for the Western Allies. It seems more reasonable, though, to bring it to war, because in war you can get the decisive advantage where you're not facing, say, the U.S. production trying to knock you out necessarily. But you might still, you know, if the Russians just overrun Germany, but at least then they'll have the extra production spaces that they want for that. I think we had some increases in commitment, not much. All right, let's send it up.